Tech millionaire overcome with emotion after Black Maid, who saved his life, gives him triplets. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. Daniel Mercer was once a man who had everything. He had money, power, and respect. But one day, in a quiet hospital room, he was kneeling and crying. His tears fell on the sweater of a woman who once cleaned his big house. Her name was Maya. That day, Daniel finally learned what it meant to feel like a real person again. Daniel had built big companies and was very important, but he couldn't even keep his own heart beating without Maya. Maya wasn't just a maid. She was the woman who saved him, helped him get better, and gave him something he never thought he would have, a family. Maya had her own pain, just like Daniel. But when two people share pain, can they build something good together? And what happens when the woman who saved your life brings 3 more lives into it? Is that a miracle? Before we start this beautiful story, ask yourself, would you forgive someone who gave up everything to save you, even if they came from a world you never looked at before? If you think love can come from the most unexpected places, hit the like button and subscribe. Now let's begin. The sun was just starting to rise. Daniel Mercer stood at the window of his very tall office. He was 38 floors above the ground. He didn't move. The glass felt cold under his fingers, but it wasn't as cold as the way he felt inside. Daniel's life looked perfect. He was the boss of a huge company called Astor Technologies. People saw him in magazines, on TV, and in big talks. Everyone thought he was smart and successful, but that wasn't the real Daniel. Behind him, 2 phones were ringing. His watch was beeping, but he didn't turn around. Something inside him felt strange, like a little sadness or emptiness. Daniel had always liked being in control. When he was little, he wore suits and learned how to lead and make big decisions. His dad, Arthur Mercer, was a powerful man. He didn't believe in showing feelings. Arthur once told him, "Business doesn't care about feelings. Only facts matter." So Daniel learned to keep all his feelings locked inside. His mom, Celeste, was quiet. She gave him books and little kisses on his head, but she was never around much. Their house was fancy but didn't feel like home. They had big dinners where no one talked, and everything was too clean to touch. By age 16, Daniel was already amazing at business. By 28, he was rich, and by 38, he ran one of the biggest tech companies in the world. He had money in smart machines, green energy, and computers. People in many countries knew his name. But no one ever asked how he really felt. His relationships were like his business, short, neat, and not too deep. He once dated a woman named Karina. She was nice and stayed with him for 3 years, but Daniel never showed her his true self. When she left, it was raining. She told him, "Loving you feels like reading a beautiful book, but the pages won't open." He just crossed his arms and said, "You're being dramatic." But her words stayed in his mind for a long time. Now, back in his office, that memory came back to him. He turned away from the window and walked to his desk. There was a big black chair made just for him. But he didn't sit. He felt a tight pain in his chest. It had started a few weeks ago, like a flutter or tiredness. He thought it was just jet lag or stress. But now it felt worse. He took a deep breath. Not today, he thought. He had meetings and phone calls and important things to do. Later, when he stepped into the shower, the warm water hit his back, but it didn't feel nice. It felt like 1,000 little needles. His vision got blurry. Then, pain like lightning in his chest. He fell to the floor. Everything went quiet. Then he heard footsteps. Someone cried out. A cup broke on the floor. "Sir," a voice said. He felt hands on his chest. Another voice shouted on the phone, "He's not breathing. I need an ambulance now." Then, darkness. When Daniel opened his eyes, he was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped around him. A tube was in his arm. His chest hurt. He tried to talk but could only make a little sound. Then he saw her, Maya. She sat by his side. She wore a cozy sweater and had a folded magazine in her lap. Her eyes got big when she saw he was awake. "You're awake," she said softly. Don't move, the nurse said to call them when you woke up. His voice cracked. You found me. She nodded. You didn't show up for your 9 a.m. meeting. I felt something was wrong. I found you on the bathroom floor. You called for help, he said. I did more than that, she said. You weren't breathing. I did CPR. I didn't know what else to do. You saved my life, he said. She looked down and pushed her hair back. I just did what anyone would. But Daniel knew most people wouldn't know what to do. Most would be scared. She wasn't. The doctors said that if Maya hadn't acted fast, he would have died. That night, Daniel lay still, staring at the ceiling. This woman, his maid, had touched his body when it was weak and broken, and she gave him life again. Something inside him broke, not his heart, but the wall around it. She had seen him at his weakest and stayed. That changed everything. The next morning, Daniel looked out the hospital window. The sky was pink with the new sunrise. He felt like a stranger in his own life. His company was still running, phones were ringing, emails were coming. But here, in this quiet room, none of it mattered. There was a gentle knock. The door opened. It was Maya again. She held a thermos and a paper bag. Her hair was in a braid. Her face looked calm and kind. You didn't eat dinner last night, she said. I thought you might want something warm. Daniel blinked. You're still here, she smiled. I told the nurse I'd come back this morning. You finally slept. He tried to sit up, but it hurt. Maya quickly came and helped him with the pillows. Take it slow, she said. Daniel looked at her hands. They were steady and warm. I'm not used to needing help, he said. I know, she said, looking into his eyes. But right now, it's okay to need someone. His chest hurt again, not from sickness, but from a feeling he didn't understand. She poured tea into a cup and gave it to him. It smelled like lemons and flowers. Té de limon, she said. My dad made it when I had a fever. I always thought it tasted like kindness. Daniel looked at the cup. Thank you. It was just tea, but for Daniel, it felt like a gift from the heart. When he went back home, the doctors told him to rest. No work, no stress, but he didn't know how to rest. His big house felt empty and cold. Everything was shiny and expensive, but lifeless. But every morning Maya came back. She didn't come quietly anymore. She brought kindness. She made soups, left little notes, and changed the sheets even when he said she didn't have to. One day, he walked into the kitchen and heard her humming. She was making stew. The song she hummed was soft and sweet, not something on the radio. It was an old lullaby. She looked up, surprised. I didn't hear you come in. I didn't want to interrupt, Daniel said. That song, it's beautiful. Maya smiled. My grandmother used to sing it to me. I guess I still carry it with me. Daniel sat down and watched her. For the first time, he didn't see her as just the maid or the woman who saved his life. He saw her, a person with a past, a family, a story. He wanted to know all of it. In the days that followed, they became close. Every morning, Maya brought tea and warm food. They talked. At first, it was about the weather, then about books, then about dreams. Daniel, who always picked his words carefully, now spoke freely. He told her things he had never told anyone, not even Karina. He talked about being a boy, his fears, and how sometimes at night he looked out the window and wondered if anyone would miss him if he disappeared. Maya didn't get scared. She listened. Then she told her story. She talked about Monterey, her brothers and sisters, and how hard she worked to keep them in school. She had been so much more than just a housekeeper, and Daniel began to feel something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Maya had been like a second mom to her younger siblings after their parents passed away. A few years ago, she had been very sick. The doctors helped her get better, but the sickness left her with pain that no one could see. They told me I might never have children, she whispered one evening. I cried for weeks. Then I told myself, I can still be a mother in other ways. So I kept living. Daniel sat quietly. Her words touched his heart. You're braver than I've ever been, he said. She looked at him and blinked. I'm just doing what life asked me to do. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked around his big apartment. He saw the work calls he missed and the papers he hadn't read. Then he stopped near the guest room. Maya stayed there during the week. He listened to the quiet inside. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt peaceful. It felt full of something special. As days passed, Daniel and Maya grew closer. They didn't say it out loud, but they started to care for each other. Maya never asked for attention, but Daniel gave it anyway. He waited to hear her voice in the morning. He stayed in the kitchen just to be near her while she worked. He liked hearing her hum a song. One weekend, Daniel offered to drive her to her apartment. They didn't talk much, but the silence felt calm and safe. When they reached her building, she reached for the door. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer." Daniel looked at her. "You can call me Daniel." She paused, then smiled. "Okay, Daniel." It was the first time in years Daniel felt like his name truly belonged to him. She stepped out, then turned back before closing the door. "Take your vitamins and rest. That's an order." He laughed. "Yes, ma'am." That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her. One Thursday, he asked her to have dinner with him. Not as an employee, as his guest. They sat in the kitchen, the lights were low and one candle flickered between them. Maya wore a simple navy blue dress. Her hair was down. She looked beautiful, calmed and strong. "Do you ever think about doing something else?" Daniel asked after dessert. "What do you mean?" "You said you wanted to be a nurse." She nodded. Her eyes looked dreamy. "Yes, I did. But school is expensive, and I couldn't leave my brothers and sisters behind." Daniel looked into her eyes. "You still can become one." She frowned. "Daniel, that part of my life is over." "No," he said softly. "It's just beginning." She looked away and blinked. "Let me help," he said gently. "You already saved my life. Let me do something for you." Her voice shook. "You don't owe me anything." "It's not about owing," he said. "It's about caring." She wiped her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" He took a deep breath. "Because you're the only person who ever looked at me and saw something worth saving." Hello, my beautiful family. Are you still here? Are you still watching and listening? Thank you. I appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button. Thank you, my lovely family. Now let's continue the story. It started in little ways. Daniel began waking up early, not for work calls, but to spend a few quiet minutes in the kitchen while Maya made her tea. She didn't talk much in the mornings. She just smiled and gave him a hot cup of something that smelled nice. Sometimes she left little surprises for him, like handwritten notes under the coffee pot, recipes near his tablet, or a quote on a sticky note. One said, "To love and be loved is to feel the sun from both sides." Daniel read her notes like treasures. They made him feel warm inside, a warmth he didn't know he had been missing. One Friday, he invited her to a fancy art party hosted by one of his company's donors. It was a big, shiny event, but he didn't want to go alone. He wanted her by his side. "I don't have clothes for that kind of party," she said. "You don't need anything fancy," he answered quickly. "Just come as you." The next evening, when she walked out of the guest room, Daniel was speechless. She wore a light ivory dress that sparkled in the light. It was simple but lovely. She had her hair twisted up. She looked graceful and strong. "You look beautiful," Daniel said softly. Her cheeks turned pink. "Thank you, Daniel." The way she said his name made his heart feel full. At the party, she stayed close to him. People smiled politely. Some looked curious but didn't say anything. Maya asked good questions and smiled kindly. She stood tall and calm. Daniel noticed. He wasn't just proud, he was thankful. Thankful to stand beside someone who made him feel seen, not for money or power, but for who he really was. On the way home, the car was quiet. The city lights danced through the windows. Daniel's hand touched hers. She didn't pull away. Back at the penthouse, something was in the air. It felt like something big was about to happen. Maya walked to the kitchen to wash glasses, but Daniel stopped her and gently took her wrist. You don't have to clean anything tonight, he whispered. I don't mind, she said. I do, he said, his voice shaky. Stay. She looked at him, unsure. Please, he said again. She let the sponge drop. Her fingers shook a little. He took her hand and led her to the living room. The lights were soft and the air felt peaceful. They sat side by side. They didn't talk at first. Finally, Daniel turned toward her. There's something I've wanted to say, he said. Maya looked at him. She didn't speak, but her eyes were ready to listen. I thought I knew what it meant to care about someone. I didn't, not until you. She caught her breath but said nothing. You changed me, he said. Every part of my life that was empty, you filled it. You didn't ask for anything. You just gave. I only did what I knew how to do, she said quietly. He nodded. Exactly, and that was everything. He leaned closer. She didn't move away. I don't want to keep pretending I'm just thankful. I'm more than thankful. I think I'm falling in love with you, Maya. The words hung in the air like stars. Maya blinked fast, then smiled. It was a shaky smile, but full of feelings. You're not alone in that. He touched her cheek. Her eyes closed as his thumb brushed her face. Then he kissed her. It was soft, full of emotion. It wasn't fast or fancy. It was a kiss full of all the quiet dinners, the hospital visits, the long glances and unspoken feelings. When they pulled away, she rested her forehead on his. You really mean it? She asked. He nodded. I've never been more sure. She smiled. That night, they were not boss and helper. They were two people who had been lonely and now found something very special, love that felt like home. After that, things changed, but they still respected each other. Daniel was gentle, he gave her space, but every day they found ways to be close, not as boss and maid, but as two hearts learning to be one. On weekends, he went shopping with her. He loved how she explained food from her culture. She showed him how to make empanadas. He always messed them up. She laughed when he burned the edges. He joked when she tried too hard to fold perfect ones. At night, they cuddled on the couch with her grandma's blanket. He read books to her, books from the library. Sometimes he said Spanish words wrong. She smiled and helped him say them right. It wasn't a love full of fire and rushing. It was quiet, sweet, and strong. One evening, after a walk by the water, Daniel asked, "Do you think this is real?" Maya stopped walking, her hair blew in the wind. "Yes," she said, "but it's fragile. It's special. We have to take care of it." "I will," he promised, "every day." The next week, Daniel had a dinner with close friends and business people. It was his first big event since he got sick. He didn't call Maya his housekeeper. He said, "This is someone who means everything to me." Some people clapped, some looked surprised, but Daniel didn't care. What mattered was that Maya held his hand under the table. Later, after everyone left, Daniel stood in the kitchen with a glass of wine. Maya came in and hugged him from behind. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I wanted to," he said. "I don't want to hide you." She smiled against his back. "Then let's not hide from anything anymore." The seasons changed, and so did Daniel. He stopped working late. He spent his nights with Maya. They talked on the terrace about their childhood, their dreams, and their hopes. One night, as the city lights blinked like stars, Daniel said, "I used to think I had to keep going fast or I'd lose everything." Maya leaned on him. "And now? Now I feel like I had nothing until I had you." The words weren't fancy, they were true. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for his hand and placed it on her belly. He looked at her, surprised. "I've been thinking," she said softly. "Do you ever want children?" Daniel blinked. He used to think kids weren't needed, that his legacy was his work. But now, with her, the question felt different. "I never thought I'd say this," he said. "But with you, yes, I want that." Maya's smile faded. She held his hand tighter. "Daniel, I need to tell you something." He turned to look at her. "I was very sick a few years ago," she said, looking far away. "After that, my doctor said I might not be able to have a baby." The room was very quiet. Daniel took a moment to think. Then he gently held her face and turned it toward him. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked. "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared that if we talked about having a future, you might change your mind." Daniel's face became soft. "Maya, I didn't fall in love with you because you could have a baby. I fell in love with you because you are my family." Tears came to her eyes and she leaned into him. "I don't know what will happen," she said, "but I wanted you to know." "Then let's face it together," he said, "no matter what." Weeks passed. Autumn came slowly. One morning, Maya sat on the edge of their bed. Her hand was on her tummy. She felt strange for days, tired, dizzy, and not right. She thought it was just stress or a cold from the early winter. But inside, she felt something was different. She found the test in the bottom drawer. It was the same one Daniel bought months ago during a shopping trip. "Just in case," he had said with a smile. They laughed then. Now, she held the test with shaking hands. The next few minutes were the longest of her life. When the results showed, she stared without moving. The word said pregnant. It didn't feel real. She walked around the room, her hand on her mouth. So many thoughts: hope, fear, surprise. Could it really be true? After everything? That evening, Daniel came home. He found her sitting in the living room, the test still in her hand. "Maya?" he asked, feeling something was wrong. She looked up, her eyes big and full of surprise. "Daniel, I'm pregnant." The world stopped. He stepped closer, slowly, like the moment might disappear. "Are you sure?" he asked. She nodded, her voice shaking. "I took 2 more tests, all say yes." Daniel dropped to his knees in front of her, his eyes filled with tears. "We're having a baby." She nodded again. He laughed, happy but surprised. "This is real." Maya was already crying. "I don't know how, but yes, it's real." Daniel wrapped his arms around her and held her close. "You're my miracle," he whispered. "You always have been." The next day, they went to the doctor. The room was quiet except for the soft sounds of machines. Maya held Daniel's hand tightly as the doctor did the ultrasound. After a few minutes, the doctor's eyebrows went up a little. She turned the screen toward them. "I have something to show you," she said. Daniel and Maya stared at the screen. "There's not just one heartbeat," the doctor said softly. "There are 3. Daniel's mouth dropped open. Maya blinked, not believing it. "3?" she gasped. The doctor smiled. "Triplets. All strong and healthy." The word felt loud in the room. "Triplets!" Daniel sank into a chair, feeling dizzy. He pressed his hands to his mouth, shocked. Maya squeezed his hand tight. He looked at her with tears running down his face. We're having 3 babies." She laughed with tears too. "We really are." Daniel said softly, "I need to sit down again." They both laughed, feeling so happy and surprised. From that moment, everything changed. Their big apartment was not just a quiet place for 2 anymore. It became a home getting ready for babies. Books about how to take care of babies filled the shelves. Baby clothes came in big piles, tiny shirts, soft blankets, and little shoes that Daniel held like they were treasures. They picked colors for the baby's room, soft green and warm white. Maya taught Daniel lullabies in Spanish, and he hummed them quietly while he painted the walls. At night, they talked to the babies, imagining what they would be like. Maybe a boy who loved puzzles, a girl who loved music, and another boy who always took cookies from the jar. Daniel had never hoped for this before, not once, but now he couldn't imagine life any other way. Maya's pregnancy went on carefully. Daniel was very protective. Every doctor visit, every craving, every tired yawn, he was there. When she couldn't sleep, he sat next to her, rubbing her back and whispering kind words in both languages. One night as they lay in bed, Daniel put his ear on her belly. "I can hear them," he whispered. Maya laughed. "You can't." "Maybe not," Daniel said, "but I can feel them." He looked at her, his eyes shining. "Do you know what you've given me?" She touched his face. "The same thing you gave me. Hope." When winter came, Daniel called Maya's family in Mexico. He spoke slowly but with a kind heart in Spanish, telling her brothers and sisters about the babies. Rafael and Lena cheered. Their grandmother cried happy tears. "Thank you for loving my granddaughter," she said softly. "I don't know how I lived before her," Daniel said. The next week, Daniel set up a baby shower on the computer. Maya's family joined from far away. They shared stories, songs, and laughter. It was not a big party, but very loving and warm. Even Daniel's work friends noticed the change. Daniel started new programs for workers, time off when babies were born, help with childcare, and flexible work hours. When people asked why, he said simply, "Because families matter more than work." One morning, Maya stood in the baby's room holding her back. She looked at the 3 baby beds lined up side by side. Daniel stood in there watching her, walked over and kissed her gently on the head. "You made this room feel alive," she said. "You helped," Daniel said, kneeling and putting his hand on her belly. "Are you scared?" he asked. "A little," she said. "Me too," he whispered, "but I've never wanted anything more." In that quiet moment, with city lights shining below and their hearts close, they waited for their miracle. It happened on a sunny morning, the kind of morning that makes you believe the world can be good. Maya had been awake before the sun. She moved in bed, restless. The babies, who were very active lately, were suddenly still. Not quiet, just waiting. She sat up slowly and put her hand on her tummy. Then came a sharp pain, then another. She breathed slowly, calm but ready. "Daniel," she whispered. He woke up, sleepy but alert. When he saw her eyes, everything changed. "It's time," she said, breathing fast. He jumped up, grabbed the packed bag, and called the hospital. Minutes later, they were on their way. Daniel's voice was calm and steady. "You're doing great," he said. "We're almost there." She held his hand tight and closed her eyes. "I'm scared," she said softly. "I am too," he said honestly. He kissed her hand. "But today we will meet them." The delivery room was busy with nurses and soft lights. Daniel stood beside her, dressed in the hospital clothes. His eyes stayed on hers. He kept touching her forehead and whispering words she didn't know he knew, like, "You're not alone. I'm right here, and you can do this." Maya was breathing hard, but never let go of his hand. Hours passed. The pain came and went like waves. Then it was time. She pushed with all her strength. A cry came, sharp and strong. It filled the room like a bright light cutting through fog. Daniel gasped. "That's our son," the doctor said, lifting a small red baby. Daniel's knees almost gave out. Then another cry, then a third. 3 voices, 3 little lives. Maya lay back, breathing hard, tears falling. Daniel bent beside her, crying too. "They're here," he whispered, his forehead touching hers. "They're really here." In the quiet room afterward, Maya held their daughter. Daniel held the 2 boys. Each baby was wrapped in soft blankets, blue and green. Their eyes blinked slowly and their tiny fists curled like little stars. Daniel looked at them, amazed. "I don't know how to do this," he said softly. Maya smiled at him kindly. "You're already doing it." He kissed the smallest boy's forehead. "I promise I will never let anything take this away from us." And he meant it, because for the first time in his life, and he really meant it when he said he finally understood what love was. Before, he thought love was about doing things perfectly or trying to be what others wanted. But now, he knew love was a promise. The days after the babies were born went by quickly. There were many times Daniel had to help with feeding the babies in the middle of the night and changing their diapers. It made him very tired, even more tired than during his hardest work days. But Daniel never complained. He learned how to make the baby bottles warm, not too hot or cold. He learned how to rock the baby beds gently so the babies would sleep. He also learned songs to hum that helped calm the babies when they cried. When all 3 babies finally slept, Daniel would sit next to Maya. He would watch her breathe softly while she slept, her hair messy and lips a little open because she was so tired. One night, he whispered, "This is my real life. This is everything I didn't know I needed." One afternoon, about a month later, Daniel held a big meeting at his company. Lots of reporters were there. They thought he would talk about his business, but instead he spoke about something very different. Daniel said, 3 years ago, I thought success was only about numbers and power. I thought feelings made you weak, but then I almost lost everything. He stopped for a moment and said, I survived not because of luck, but because someone saved me. She saved my life. Then she gave me 3 more reasons to keep living. His voice got a little shaky, but he kept going. Today, I want to start a new rule for this company. It will help families like mine. There will be 6 months of paid leave for new parents, days off for mental health, and better health care for pregnancy problems. Everyone clapped loudly. After the meeting, Daniel found Maya behind the curtain holding their baby daughter. He took the baby and kissed her softly on the head. Maya smiled and said, You are changing more than this company. Daniel smiled back, No, you are. I'm just following your lead. Back home, life was busy but full of love. There were diapers, pacifiers, and toys everywhere. Their quiet, clean apartment turned into a happy, colorful mess. Daniel loved it. Every night when he fed the babies, he thought about how special these moments were. Every cry, every coo, every little sound reminded him how precious these babies were. One night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He went to the nursery where the babies were sleeping. The only light was a soft nightlight. He carefully covered them with blankets and sat down in the rocking chair holding his daughter close. She fell asleep in his arms. Daniel looked out the window at the city and said softly, I used to think legacy meant big buildings and lots of money, but now it means this. You, your brothers, your mother, you are my legacy. Spring came softly. The family took their first picture in the garden. Maya wore a white dress and held their daughter. Daniel knelt beside her with the twin boys resting on his chest. They looked messy but very happy. It wasn't perfect or planned, it was real. A magazine reporter asked Daniel what changed most in his life. He smiled and said, Everything, but mostly me. Later, Daniel gave Maya a small silver box. She asked, What is this? And opened it. Inside was a gold necklace with 3 tiny charms, each with a letter M, L, and A. Those were the initials for Raphael, Lena, and Amora, the names they chose for their children. Maya blinked with tears and couldn't speak. Daniel took her hand and said, Every day with you and the kids is a gift. I never take it for granted. She leaned her head on his chest and said, I still can't believe we made it here. He smiled. We didn't just make it, we created it. One quiet morning, after the babies were asleep, Daniel stood by the window in his office. Everything felt different now. Maya came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. They watched the city wake up together. He touched her cheek and said softly, I used to stand here and feel nothing. She looked at him and said, Now you feel everything. He kissed her forehead. From the nursery, a baby cried softly. Maya smiled, That one's yours. He laughed and they held hands, ready to face the day together. 5 years later, their big apartment was full of life and noise. Finger paintings covered the fridge. Juice cups were left half full on the tables. Tiny shoes were by the door. These things told the story of a happy family. Daniel stood in the garden one morning. His daughter Amora tugged his pants and said, Daddy, look, we found a ladybug. She held out a tiny red ladybug like it was a treasure. Daniel smiled and said, That's special. Do you know what ladybugs mean? She shook her head. They bring luck, he told her. And we are already the luckiest people in the world. Nearby, Lucas and Mateo, the twin boys, laughed and ran around on the swings. Daniel watched them with love in his eyes. Maya came outside carrying juice and fruit. She wore a yellow dress and her curls bounced as she walked. Daniel teased her. You're supposed to be resting. She smiled. I've been resting. Now I'm supervising. He hugged her and said, You're always supervising and you're always falling in love. She whispered, Every single day. They stood quietly watching their children play. It wasn't fancy or exciting, but it was perfect for them. Later, Daniel sat on the floor playing with blocks with 2 of the kids trying to build a tower and the 3rd coloring. Maya came in holding an envelope. It came, she said simply. Daniel looked confused. My graduation results, she said. He opened the envelope carefully and read the letter twice. Then he looked at her with shining eyes. You did it, he said. She nodded, voice shaking. I did. Daniel hugged her tight, the letter falling to the floor. The babies cheered, not knowing what happened, but happy to see the joy. You're a nurse now, Daniel whispered into her hair. After everything, I made it, she said. I made it because you believed in me, he said. No, she said. You made it because you never stopped believing in yourself. They held each other for a long time, feeling very happy. That night, after the kids were asleep and the moon was shining softly, Daniel sat in the rocking chair watching them sleep. Maya sat quietly beside him. Daniel said softly, I was thinking about the first time I saw you. She smiled. When you passed out on the bathroom floor, he laughed. No, before that, he said. You were checking the pantry with a pen behind your ear, humming to yourself. I thought this woman lives like she is never in a hurry, even when the world is. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. I was nervous that day. It was my first month working for you. You didn't show it, Daniel said quietly, but I noticed everything. He paused, then asked, Do you think we were meant to end up here? Maya looked at their sleeping children and said, I think we were meant to find each other, and then we chose to build something beautiful. The next weekend, Daniel had a small party in the garden. It wasn't for business or money. It was for friends, neighbors, and families Maya met during her nursing school. They were celebrating love, hard work, and years of growing together. Daniel stood under the garden arch, holding a mora, and raised his glass. I used to think life was something to win, he said. I thought love was optional. I thought success meant being alone at the top. He stopped and hugged his daughter close. But now I know love is not a distraction. It is what makes life meaningful. Sometimes the people who save your life don't wear capes. Sometimes they carry laundry baskets and make lemon tea. The crowd laughed softly. Daniel looked at Maya, who was smiling by the dessert table. This family saved me, he said with tears in his voice. Every day, they remind me the most important thing I will ever build is right here, at home. He kissed his daughter's head. The applause wasn't loud, but was full of love. That evening, Daniel sat alone on the patio. Maya joined him and put 2 cups of tea on the table. Ted Limo, she said with a smile. Daniel smiled back. You remembered. I never forget what matters. He looked at the dark sky and said, I don't know what I did to deserve this life. You let yourself be seen, she said softly. And you stopped running, he said. He turned to her and whispered, You are everything. She took his hand and said, So are you. As the children slept inside, Daniel and Maya sat quietly, sipping tea and watching the stars come out. There was no music or applause, just 2 people who rebuilt their lives from loneliness and chose every day to stay. In that choice, they found love, healing, and a future full of hope. Love can change even the coldest stories. What started as a hard moment became a lifetime full of meaning. For a man who thought he needed no one, and a woman who gave everything without asking for anything in return. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been surprised by love from a place you didn't expect? Do you believe people can change, not just for someone else, but because of them? Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.